Hello there. Hey Colleen, always you first. Well, they may well be changing the rules tomorrow, supposedly limiting us to within 100 meters of our home, which, I mean, I don't know, right now I think I'm about 2 kilometers from my home, a little bit more maybe, but 100 meters is going to suck. As you can tell, I'm on a walk out in a semi-rural area, even though it's kind of right on the edge of Tel Aviv. But there's still fields here. One day I'm sure this will be high-rises and towers and shit, unfortunately, but that's progress. That's what happens when our population grows this quickly. And that's at the root of, I think, the paranoia and the I'm starting to believe, extreme measures that Israel has instituted and continues to institute, which is that we just didn't keep our health system up with the population growth. And so whilst we have a reasonable health system that copes reasonably well with our normal loads, and we have a very low flu rate, to be honest. I don't know why that is, but per million we're not that heavily influenced by normal seasonal flu. But that puts us in a position where I think our government is absolutely terrified of crashing the capacity of our health system. So as far as I'm concerned, they are doing everything right. They're doing the contact tracing, they're doing the aggressive measures to stop, to track all contacts, all of this kind of stuff, which was very important, and we keep on doing it. Today I put up, in fact, I installed, I think the night before last, the Israeli Hamagan, which means shield, Magen, like Magen David, it's the same word, it means the shield application, which is the voluntary way that we can subscribe to alerts if at some point after you've installed the application, your path intersects with a known positive test of COVID-19, so you're in the same store as them, or in some other way you were in the same place at the same time as someone who then gets diagnosed with COVID-19, your phone will tell you. Now, this is a non-intrusive system. It's not run by the Shabak. It's not looking at everybody's phones. It's totally voluntary. You have to opt in. You have to put it on your phone. Now, they'll still be interviewing everybody who tests positive to try and work out where they've been. I suspect there'll be a way, if that person agrees, to give over their location history. I mean, I could get mine out of Google, because right now, for a while, I've been giving Google my location history because I want to know where I've been. But the application as it stands is not hooked up to the Israeli security services, and actually the FAQ and the privacy information which I shared on Hive earlier, Hive on Peak D, which is a site on Hive, it's a very well written explanation of what the app is, and the app is actually open source. You can inspect the source code, and it goes to great lengths to explain that your location data is not leaving your phone, it stays on your phone. And what the app does is every hour it pulls down from the government's database the location of everyone else who has been diagnosed with COVID-19, obviously anonymized and so forth. So all that your phone is doing is getting this new record, matching that database of places and times with your reference, which is also a clever trick, because it means that you've sent out to all the phones are doing the mathematical calculations to do the intersection, which is which takes the load off the central computer. So your phone will, get this extra file, probably sit and think about it for a second or two, use a teeny weeny bit more battery than it would otherwise. But I don't think it'll be, though I must admit my battery is collapsing. I wonder whether it's not very well optimized. Singapore have instituted something even more technically advanced to do with Bluetooth. So phones will actually detect other phones and keep a record privately and securely of which other phones they've seen. And then if the owner of any one of those phones turns out to be COVID-19 positive, then it can send out a message through this system to say, has anybody else come into contact with this phone? And then your phone will alert you. That's a different philosophy. It's a different architecture and philosophy to the Israeli app. The two could be combined, and I suspect they might be working towards that. It's very interesting. I mean, the fact that all of this has been made to exist in the last, 4 weeks, that's a bit depressing, because we've known of the possibility of pandemics. But I guess, absent a pandemic, absent, daily readouts that another 600 people have died somewhere in the world, there isn't the impetus to make people want to participate in such a system voluntarily. And I wouldn't be so impressed if it was non-voluntary, that's for sure. I mean, I didn't mind the initial mining by the Israel security services of whatever information they have to alert some people, but the Supreme Court here has kind of stopped them from doing that for the moment. So we're on a voluntary system. Look, the economic problem is the big one now. Just shutting everything down. That really is, I think, going to be untenable fast. I mean, from a business point of view, I'm worried. I've got a small business. Some parts of it are able to operate at the moment, some aren't. It's very, very confusing, and it's not clear that it's not clear this will work. Actually, I'm going to turn around and go this way. Anyway, I wish we could talk about something else, but to be honest, it is, when you're stuck at home with the kids. I mean, for God's sake, I started a 500-piece jigsaw puzzle with my kids this afternoon. That's how bad it's got. And both of them came running to do it from their computers. As a responsible parent, I've limited my children to only 24 hours a day screen time, because that's the only way to have peace in the house. And I mean, the distance learning, I shared, and lots of people shared, this Israeli school teacher having a rant in the car. Fortunately, someone put English subtitles on her, and it's gone all over the world apparently. Victoria Beckham and all of the celebs have shared her rant, probably not even having a clue that it came from Israel. But so they cancelled distance learning, but they're trying to come back with it, and they should. The problem was that it was a half-cocked set of mishmash of technologies that would never been tested and didn't really work. And Israel is a frustrating place in some ways. We really do lead the world in dreaming up new technologies and selling all sorts of stuff to the world. But when it comes to using it here, I mean, I'll just give you an example. My son had his bar mitzvah just a few weeks before we went into this lockdown, and he got checks. I mean, checks have been phased out in the rest of the world, and some of the people wrote his name on the checks, and we haven't got a bank account for him because we didn't have time. And now my branch of my bank is physically shut, and they will not. I can deposit checks by phone, but not if they don't have my name on it. If they don't have my name on it, then and it's like, oh, come on, Israel, really? We're still doing checks? Checks had almost evaporated and gone by the time I left Britain 11 years ago. That kind of stuff. But, for all that, I'm still far happier to be here than I would be to be back in England at the moment. I'm kind of scared for England. I'm scared for New York, LA, these big cities in America that are, I think, ill prepared for what's coming to them. And I really, really, really hope that they get through this without vast loss of life. And I hope we all manage to pull ourselves together afterwards out the other side and go and beat the living crap out of the Chinese Communist Party. It's really no, I tell you, can he countersign the back of the check? No, there's a stamp called a zucchini or something or other that physically in the branch they have to stamp the front of the check after inspecting it manually, and they won't do that on any of the electronic deposit methods, so they'll just reject it. Anyway, after this is over, there needs to be an extreme reckoning with the Chinese Communist Party, because whether or not this was deliberate, whether or not it was just pure, this was Chernobyl. Steve Bannon has been calling it that for a while on his podcast. He's been calling this the biological Chernobyl, and that's exactly what it is. It might have been an accident, but it's the way that the communist system deals with that accident and tries to cover it up at the low levels before it eventually does get to the upper echelons. Unforgivable. And a direct consequence, of course, of the entire way you structure a communist system, because communism mismatches rewards to abilities. So you get people who do not have the right ability running the wrong things, and you get these disasters at every level, because you get these apparatchik politicians who are really good at screwing everyone over into positions way above their competence. And not saying that doesn't happen in places like the American government, and I think at least 2/3 of those arseholes should be out of a job after this, but we'll see. Someone asked about the Israeli. You know what? The Knesset, the machinations, the speaker, I can barely keep up with it. I mean, it's is Gantz trying to mount a coup, or is Bibi trying to mount a coup? I can't tell. I'm very suspicious of Gantz. I'm very pleased that Bibi is the leader during this time. I'm firmly in the camp of Bibi, because, Gantz and these people are backed by Obama lefties, and they would have us with open borders and globalized systems. They're exactly the wrong people to be in charge of any self-respecting nation state in the coming era. I mean, borders have shut all over the world. I think international air travel will be over in a couple of weeks. I mean, it's shutting down as we speak. Australia, I think, has just closed itself off. For me right now, like Bibi, only Bibi. But he's got a balancing act, because I think if the measures that are imposed on the Israeli people are too strict at this point, what's wrong with people going to the sea and surfing? I don't think anybody's going to cross-contaminate each other whilst bobbing around in the sea. What's wrong with me walking 4 kilometres to the sea and back? Nothing. Or driving to the sea and staying. But it's about distancing when you're there. If people are gathering in crowds, nuke them. Arrest them, do whatever you want, but we've got to have a balance. We've got to have some personal freedom. You cannot lock people in these small apartments that we all live in with children and not allow them out for proper exercise. That's cruel and unusual punishment. Anyway, oh wow, this has been long. Hope you've all enjoyed it. I'm Brian of London. If you don't know, check me out on brianoflondon.me, but I'm actually posting a lot more to Hive D, peakd.com/@brianoflondon. But, follow me on Twitter. I link everything. All right. Thanks for watching. Speak to you all soon. And stay safe, everybody, and stay healthy.